Thank you for coming, number one. I'm really impressed with the number of people who are here. I'm holding this press conference to clarify 2 comments I made on social media. It saddens me that my remarks were viewed as being against or unsupportive of Black Americans. That was not my intention, and I understand how these could have been misconstrued from my intended message. For that, I am truly sorry. I am for working to make Peoria a beautiful and safe place for all Peorians, especially for those that are disadvantaged and whose voices are often not heard. And not only will I continue to do so, but I also will hold true to my values that I believe lead to a more productive and unified society. Several of the members of the community reached out to me because they were angry and disappointed. Subsequently, I met or had conversations with these individuals, and I'm grateful for their willingness to openly discuss the many issues we are facing. During the meeting, I listened to them describe the problems that are systemic in both Peoria and our country. We all agreed there is no place for bigotry and racism, and there is no place for violence. As a city council member, I have kept a laser focus on shaping the future of Peoria through economic development, urban planning, transportation design, code enforcement, public safety, and resource allocation. I reviewed with them how attentive to these issues I have been, and they communicated to me how much more work needs to be done. They said what matters now are the results that we will see in the future, and I could not agree with them more. I am accountable, and I made a promise to them that I would be. Clearly, a broader community conversation needs to take place, and this dialogue must be in public and include experts. It is important for Black Americans and people of all races and religions in Peoria to feel empowered to succeed. We agreed a town hall meeting would be a good fit and a good first step, providing it is well-planned, publicized, and productive. Now, I would like to make a personal thank you to a few people. Most specifically to a young woman named Sharma St. Louis. She posted a heartfelt video on social media. She revealed in a very personal way that people want a fair shot, a safe place to live, and an opportunity to thrive. I want to thank Wesley, the 18-wheel long-haul driver who reached out to me in such a kind way. And I'd like to thank Pastor Marvin Hightower, and the board of the NAACP. I know that we can all work together. I know and I'm committed to make change happen. And now I will accept questions.
The tweets were deleted shortly after being put out there. I guess why, some people say by deleting, you're kind of hiding that they were.
I am not, and I'll tell you what happened. And if I had known more about Twitter and deleting, if I can't get it back, maybe somebody, I don't think I can get it back, but this is why. I received so many vulgar, hostile, attacking, threatening responses. If you were to read those, or if you were to see that your children wrote those, you would have been horrified. And I felt that instead of letting my Twitter feed be perpetually fed with this destructive language, it would be better to just delete it. Because it already had been retweeted, so it wasn't gone forever. I also had my Twitter account go private, or locked. And the reason I did that, for most of you, many of you may know, but my mother passed away 6 weeks ago. And I had made, she had promised my younger brother that she would help with his only child. His mother is very ill right now. And she passed away, and there was nobody to help. And I offered to fly him to Peoria, actually to Chicago, pick him up, bring him to Peoria, then bring him, and then we would go to Chicago for the second week. So I was with him, and he's an unaccompanied minor to fly. His dad has always been, he's an only child, his dad has always had him there in Florida with him. And I was getting so many, there was so much activity on the Twitter account, it was using up all my battery. I don't know if you go to your battery function on your iPhones, you'll see Twitter is one of the most, it uses up so much battery power. So that's the explanation for that.
You also, I noticed this morning that you had blocked me on Twitter, a couple other people said.
I'm sorry, I don't even know who you are.
Oh.
So, who are you?
Shane Gustafson with WMBD News.
Okay, great.
It was a verified account. All I was just asking is if people were saying that you had blocked them on Twitter, was that for a similar reason?
I don't know about that. I'll have to find out. Seriously, I'm not an expert Twitter user. The reason I like Twitter, and I think everybody should do it, you get information and news from sources that you like to follow, and I get news from sources that are very varied. Some Republican, some Democrat, some conservative, some liberal, people interested in urban planning, people interested in healthcare, people interested in the Brookings Institution. I mean, my Twitter feed is loaded with as much information as I can get my hands on.
Beth, are you saying today, your first tweet was that you would never support Black Lives Matter. Are you saying today that that might not be the case so much?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, and this is what I can say to clarify that. I tweeted, I cannot be, and maybe if someone has the tweet, they can tell me exactly what I said, but I believe I said, I will never support Black Lives Matter, they are too divisive or divisive. And my view was that they were primarily an agitating, violent organization. I have been scolded, and I have been educated that that is not the case. Okay? They did not have a platform when those tweets went out. They did not put their platform out until the first week of August. I just explained I've been with my nephew. I just got home on Sunday, and as you can imagine, there have been more people that have wanted to contact me than in the entire time I've been dedicating my time to making Peoria a better place, which, by the way, was started in 2001. So it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to reach out to people that never probably would have ever reached out to me before, even if it was anchored in anger. And I embrace that, and I understand, and I respect their positions. But once you, and as I was reminded, what I've done for the last 12 years has now been erased, which is not really true, because my last 12 years of work has given me a foundation to understand the issues. Just because you will not validate the work that I've done, I use it as a foundation. Because you cannot talk about issues if you don't know what you're talking about. And I have a lot to learn. But my interest in racial matters did not start when I moved to Peoria. It started a long time ago when I was about 11 years old. I grew up outside of Detroit. I feel like I'm an expert in what can happen when race relations declines and erodes and becomes horrible.
Between this and Twittergate the last couple of years with the mayor, I mean, what kind of object lessons can be learned about politicians using Twitter and how they're supposed to use it?
Well, number one, Mayor Artis was not using Twitter. Okay? I think the object lesson is it's a powerful medium, used in the right way. And unfortunately, 140 characters is not enough. And I think someone just said to me, Beth, we know that when you speak, you've got volumes of information beneath you supporting what you say, and it's likely that other people may not have that same experience, same interest, same depth of knowledge, and I am not an expert in this field, but I'm very willing to learn.
You've clarified your position on the Black Lives Matter. Could you also clarify your position now, or do you have some new position regarding your statement about ill-equipped people having babies?
Okay, so my tweet about the ill-equipped having babies was a result of, and I need to get some water, but it was a result of a panel that was hosted on the 11th of July, and I urge can I just have to get my glasses, sorry. It was hosted on July 11th, and it was a panel of experts around the country that have expertise in the field of race relations and in particular members who had started the Black Lives Matter movement, and pastors and 30 people assembled, and it was aired by Fox News. And in that exchange, and I really do think if you go to YouTube or Google and type in Black Lives Matter, Megyn Kelly, hour-long special, she did a very good, I know people criticize Fox News as saying that they're biased and they're conservative and they have an agenda. I listen to all the news stations, by the way. I listen exclusively to MSNBC in the morning. I think Morning Joe is the most amazing morning program. I love it. But the panel became very emotional, obviously. It was an emotional topic at the time. It was just after the policeman had been murdered in Dallas. And someone said with a very loud and booming voice, "Abolish the police." Oh, look at that. And so abolishing the police, what does that mean? It doesn't mean abolish the police for black people. It means abolish the police for all of us. Asians, whites, everyone. And is that even realistic? Is that even going to happen? How can we abolish the police? So, then I said, oh, okay, if we're going to abolish the police, then we need fewer ill-equipped people having children equals less crime. Now, to Gary's point, what does ill-equipped mean? It means under-resourced, under-educated, unprepared. There's only a certain number of hours in a day, and how many hours do small children need for your attention and your time and your love and your care? How much money does it take to raise these kids? It's not, there's minimum expectations that have to be met. And yes, there are people who successfully raise children when they are under-resourced, undereducated, ill-prepared. Absolutely, there are examples all over this country, but that is not the rule. And if you believe it's the rule, you are deluding yourselves. We have to do more to make sure that people, when they make the decision to have babies, that they are prepared and they understand the tremendous responsibility. And I speak from this from the bottom of my heart. And I am not in a position as an elected official to get into the lives of people, get into their private lives. I'm not the parents, I'm not the church, I'm an elected city council person, and our only purview is, as I described earlier, which is first of all, allocation of resources, public safety, urban planning, transportation planning. And by the way, we don't have control over all the transportation planning. We have control over just what we own locally, and we can influence decisions that are made at the state and the federal level. Beyond that, code enforcement. Code enforcement is a major problem in the city. And we are inundated with slum landlords who feel that it's okay to let the most vulnerable people live in conditions that you wouldn't let animals live in. We could sit in this room and talk about it for hours and hours. I am one person out of 11. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity to start having a community conversation. I look forward to the people who offered their help, and I look forward to others that are going to step up. And I'm hoping that we can get experts. And when I was meeting with the people that wanted seriously to have a more personal conversation, because they felt that I'd let them down. They had been supporters of mine and they wanted to continue to support me, but they were concerned. They thought that maybe I was not who I said I was, or who they believed I was. And I told them about a meeting that I had in Chicago with one of the most famous public rights activist attorneys. His name is Alexander Polikoff. And my hope was to have Alexander and his team come to Peoria to help us drive this conversation. He alone, with his team, has successfully argued before the Supreme Court to eliminate public housing as we all know it, the tenement-style housing that segregates people and puts them in conditions that nobody would want to live in. And Alexander has offered to come. When I brought it up, there was basically silence. Not in that group, but when I got back to City Hall. So maybe now we can start this conversation. We could bring Alexander down and we can ask him if he would be willing to help. Because it's a serious issue, I understand that. And it is largely based, segregation is largely based on systemic racism, and I get that.
Beth, I think a lot of people would agree you are a very intelligent woman. We reached out to some of your colleagues, and I'm just going to ask you this question, and you can answer it, or you don't have to answer it. This was tweeted, said that she says things oftentimes to draw attention to herself. I don't know if that's true or not.
Interesting.
And we all, I think everybody in here would agree you're a very intelligent woman, but given the climate in this country, why would you, certain things are just very volatile.
It was not smart of me.
Okay. What do you say to your council colleagues?
Nobody's asked me about it.
Well, I know, and maybe...
Actually, people are talking behind my back.
I got the impression they didn't want to touch it.
Well, that's
Last week.
unfortunate.
At least when we called out, reached out to some,
That's
nobody
unfortunate.
responded, but one did say that sometimes she says things, we don't know why that she says the things that she says. We don't know if they're to draw attention to herself.
Interesting.
Is that true? Or?
If you could give me an example, I could.
I don't.
Maybe somebody in the press can remember.
Well, maybe
or maybe
it was
the council.
Maybe it was the tweet last week that was, was a tip
Oh,
of the
just one
iceberg.
thing? Oh, I don't know. You'd
don't
have to
know.
ask them to be more specific.
You said you were not wise. Could you expound on what you mean by that?
I was not what?
You said you were not, it was not wise, what you said.
Well, I think in the context of how Denise put it, first of all, I've tweeted 842 times, I think, something like that. Nobody's ever paid attention. You know, I certainly didn't do it for the attention. I certainly didn't do it to create a stir. I certainly didn't do it to make anybody angry. And there are lots of other ways probably to do that.
So why'd you do it?
Because at the time, I was watching the Megyn Kelly conversation, just, I think I'm entitled to have a reaction, which I did.